Hang Seng, after falling almost 2% in yesterday's trading session, is seeing some gains of around 45 points.
TCS today welcomes its new CEO and MD, K. Krithivasan.
And on the way up, the Bank Nifty for the uptrend needs to cross the recent high of 44,499.
The base issue is close to around 1.5%. There's a green shoe option of another 1.5%.
Well, what did the economy do? It scored a 6.
The first tick on the index is actually in the green, but just consolidating with a bit of a positive bias.
I think the market overall, we don't see a big upside really from a near-term perspective.
The May outcomes have been quite good, particularly in the domestic business.
And when you really look into the data, I think it comes really from government capex.
It's a flat screen right now when we look at the Nifty and the sensex.
The rationale for us to increase the stake in ImmunoAct is to help them to build their capacity.
Earlier, electric two-wheelers used to get a subsidy of 40% of the vehicle cost. That is going to come down from today to 10% to 15% of the vehicle cost.
Good numbers led largely by the domestic business, which has doubled year on year. Nifty has been very range-bound at that 18,554 mark.
Well, that was the day so far. You're with us here on another edition of Closing Bell this Thursday afternoon. We're coming to you live from the CNBC-TV18 Motilal Oswal studios. I'm Prashant. With me here in the studios are Reema and Surubi. Guys, hi. Good afternoon. And Mangalam is joining us from the newsroom floor as well. The market is not doing very much if you just looked at the Nifty, but it is doing a lot if you looked at the mid and the small cap part of the market. Actually, that's what I want to start with, because for the second day in a row, the small cap index is roaring. I mean, the index was up 1% yesterday when the Nifty was down sharply, and today it's up another 1%. So that is where really all the action is. Even the mid-cap index is not doing as well. It's up 1/3%. Of course, doing better than the Nifty, but the small caps is where the list of, it's a long list of really very broad stocks which are doing well. And maybe we can put out a few names in a bit from now, but and led by volumes. Yesterday was a very high volume day, the second highest ever. There was a little bit of that MSCI effect as well, but I suspect volumes won't match yesterday's high, but they're pretty healthy today as well. As I said, mid-caps are also doing well. The Nifty is absolutely flat, nothing at all, 12 points lower. And in terms of the global scene, the dollar is flat. The dollar almost got to the 105 kind of levels and sold off last night. But this morning in Asia, it's absolutely flat. Asian equities ended flat as well, more red than green. Europe is doing a little better. Indices there are up in the green. US futures are flat to slightly higher. So not very much in terms of cues from US as well.
Actually, Europe is doing very well. The DAX is up more than 1%. That's, the German index, which is a gain of 1.1%. We're looking at a 0.9% rally 1% gain coming through on the French index as well. So the Europe screen is actually more than fine. It's roaring, but remember the last couple of days have been very, very weak for the European indices. Including the up move that you're seeing today, frontline European indices are down close to about 1.5% week today. In terms of individual gainers, pharma seeing a lot of buying interest. So Apollo Hospitals, Divi's Laboratory, these stocks are up 4% and 2.5% respectively. Auto is one pocket where we have seen earnings upgrades. So Bajaj Auto, Tata Motors and Hero MotoCorp, that's where some more buying interest has come through. And in the last few minutes, you are seeing an uptick in Nestle. Nestle is gained close to about 1%. Just right now, pull up that intraday chart of Nestle. And on the losing side, keep your eye on some banks. Selling pressure emerging. ICICI Bank has moved to the day's low. That's down nearly about 0.5%. Pull up a State Bank of India. Some of the gains are being trimmed over there. Axis Bank also has a little bit of a nick. It's ICICI Bank, Axis Bank. Some of these banks are seeing their profits being taken off.
Oh, yeah, that's what's pulling it down. But really, the day belongs to pharma. Pharma index itself has had a big move today, and all the top constituents are right up there on the Nifty tally. I mean, if you look at the top 10 stocks, you'll find 4 to 5 pharma names: Apollo, Divi's. There is Cipla, there's Sun Pharma. So there's a big pharma rally that's playing out, and that is one of the best performing indices. In fact, the best performing index in the market today. Just a word on some of the interesting mid-cap movers and shakers. There's lots of follow-through buying happening on Tier 2 financial stocks. I'll just name a couple. The South Indian Bank, which is looking at an 8.5% up move. There's UCO Bank. There's PNB Housing Finance. There's RBL Bank. There's Manappuram. So whether it's banks or NBFCs, tier 2 financials are having a very, very solid run. That's another key takeaway from today's action. But I guess, Mangalam, this has been the trend for a while now, right? The benchmarks tend to remain flattish. It's all about individual stocks beyond the Nifty 50.
It is all about individual stocks, and a lot of people are watching the individual stocks, but there are a lot of people who are also watching the index, and the index not doing anything or consolidating around a fulcrum is the best that option writers can hope for, because they get to eat the premiums on both call as well as the put side. And that's something that I'm looking at today as well. Not much in terms of a move for the Nifty. Over the last couple of days, it was meandering around the 18,600 fulcrum. Yesterday it came down to around 18,500, and today 18,550 seems to be the fulcrum where a fair amount of options are written. Next 1 hour, we will see both the Nifty and Nifty Bank weekly options expiry play out. At 3 p.m. we will see which way things move. But the way options are placed right now, we don't expect a big move either, because on the Nifty itself, 18,500 put, extremely active right now. The bulls believe 18,500 is an important support to watch out for, and 18,600 call on the way up is extremely active as well. So you have the market meandering between this 18,500 to 600 range for the next 1 hour. For the Nifty Bank, again, it's all round numbers, psychological support coming in at the 44,000 level. That's the most active put. And on the way up, we have the 44,100 call for a premium of a little over under 100 odd rupees, telling you that 44,200 is a range. So 44,000 to 44,200 on the Nifty Bank, and 18,500 to 18,600 on the Nifty is what the street is bracing for in terms of an expiry. So not a big move expected even at 3 p.m. However, just keep an eye out on the medium-term levels, the important levels, the 20-day moving averages, both on the Nifty and the Nifty Bank. By virtue of the markets moving higher, these have moved higher as well, but not enough. So those would be important supports to watch out for in the medium term.
Okay, so those are some of the markers that we can keep in mind. Let's tell you what's lined up on the show today then. Auto sales have come in for the month of May. They've been trickling in, and so far it looks like a rather solid set. We'll get you all the details in just a bit. Laurus Labs trades higher. The company has increased its stake in a cell and gene therapy company, ImmunoAct. We'll get you excerpts from the management conversation. We learn from sources that Bank of Maharashtra is eyeing a QIP. All the details coming up on the show. And of course, we'll discuss portfolio calls with our Alpha Manager of the Day, Aditya Sood of Incred PMS, joins in. All this and more over the next 60 minutes.
Okay, well, that's a line up here over the next 60, as Surabhi said. Well, how should you position yourself now in the last hour of trade? And I suspect Midesh will want to dive straight into individual stocks as far as trades go, because the index is not really throwing up anything with any energy as well. I mean, it's been dead flat since the morning, Midesh. Hi, afternoon.
Yeah. Afternoon, Prashant. I think it's very flat. And I think, the overall setup on the hourly and the 2-hourly chart suggests that there is a chance of contraction happening. Most of the indicators are now coming off or looking southward from the overbought levels. Sorry, excuse me. And good chance that we'll look at a range consolidation. So 18,450, 650 is my understanding on the Nifty. 43,850 in the worst case, 43,500, and 44,450 for the Bank Nifty. So trade with stock specific biases. Wait for the index to come to the lower end of the range to buy. Till then, I think the index, both the indexes are kind of in a no trade zone. On the stock side, I have one buy and one sell. UPL is a sell with a stop at about 686 for targets of roughly around 660. While Marico is something which is on the buy list. Keep a stop at 545. Look for targets of 575.
We're at the day's low now for the benchmark indices. The Nifty is just about holding on to that 18,500 mark. It's a cut of about 0.2%, and it's courtesy the fall in the banking names. Pull up something like an ICICI Bank. It was down about 0.5%. Now it's extended the fall to about 0.75 of a percentage point. HDFC Limited, another heavyweight, that's exerting pressure as selling is emerging in these names. But let's talk about the auto pack. Because the monthly sales numbers have been out for many of the companies like Bajaj Auto, Escorts, M&M, Maruti. Sonia is here to make sense of the numbers and give us a few trends. Sonia.
Thanks a lot for that. Big trend I've noticed is that the auto sales have been much better than what the street was estimating for most of the companies that have reported up until now. So let's start with the strong numbers. The first one is Bajaj Auto, where the stock hit a 52-week high and has been one of the strongest performers after a good set of numbers that the company reported in May. It's a 29% growth that Bajaj Auto has seen, a large part of it led by domestic growth, which has doubled, and the management is very confident that the trend will continue to improve because the 125cc plus segment has outperformed in the market. After that, we come to Maruti, where the sales have gone up 10.5% year on year. Over here too, you've seen a premium segment growth. So the utility vehicle segment has seen a big surge this time, and that's the premium end, while the mini and compact car segment has been under a bit of pressure. In Escorts, the growth has been pretty good. The management commentary is positive. Total sales growth of almost 10%, almost 9%, and domestic sales growth has been better. And the management said that it's the impending monsoons which are expected to be favorable, as well as a pickup in, the rural spends, which is something that can aid the sales in the months to come. M&M as well, if you look at it, the auto sales have been very strong, led largely by SUV sales, which have seen a growth in excess of 20%. Total auto sales have gone up by 14% year on year, coming in at 61,415 units. But on the flip side, on the weaker side, it's M&M tractor sales that are under a tad bit of pressure. So while peers like Escorts have seen a 9% growth year on year, M&M tractor sales are down by 4% on a year on year basis. But largely, if you'd had to say, more hits than misses in this month's numbers. Back to you.
Sequentially also, the business has improved, and it has taken very good strides in the target segment, which is the 125cc plus. The industry is coming back since Q4, but I would say the industry is in low single-digit growth. We expect the industry to grow at about 3 to 5% in the next 2-3 months, and we should keep growing at perhaps twice that rate, and again driven by the top half of the industry. In April and May, we've made very good strides in the 125cc plus segment, crossing the 30% plus market share. At an overall level, we would be at about 18% plus, with 30% plus, about 32% coming from the 125cc plus segment. Nigeria is looking every month better. The demand on the ground is improving, but what sort of mutes the export is the uncertainty still, or the availability of US dollars for trading.
Okay, so that's Bajaj Auto, also tracking a turnaround in their export market. And of course, domestic sales have been quite robust. Devin Choksi is with us on the show today. Devin, good afternoon. Always a pleasure having you on our shows. So let's start with this sector. I mean, auto stocks have done really well, right? The auto index is practically at its 52-week high. And most, Bajaj, of course, is at a 52-week high. Most other stocks as well, they're just 3-4% off the peak. I mean, how would you cut it up? Which are the stocks that you would back and you would play? Any of the names that have reported numbers today, do you like any of them? Bajaj, Maruti, etc.?
Thanks, Survi. Good afternoon. Well, I think after a long period, I think these auto companies have started seeing the light of the day as far as I think their business and outlook is concerned. Till last year, majority of them were having a problem pertaining to semiconductor chips. Though completely it has not gone out of the way, but still, I think more or less at least 90% of the situation is under control for most of the auto companies. We certainly believe that I think this is a time where probably the things are looking better and will continue to look better. Few reasons. One, importantly, economy is spending big time money on infrastructure, as well as I think in the industry side, the expansion is taking place. As a result of which, I think more and more amount of demand is getting generated on either the commercial vehicle segment or passenger vehicle segment, or even for that matter, two-wheeler segment. And even Escort computer numbers suggest that even the tractor demand also is now visibly picking up, though Mahindra is not still fully confirming it. But I believe that I think these numbers are likely to look up smartly, particularly for commercial vehicles and auto, because I think auto was up till now languishing. Now it is recovering. Good part to notice in case of Bajaj Auto kind of a company that they also started having a larger amount of share from domestic market or commercial vehicle side, where the profit margins are reasonably good. So this company they have come back to 355,000 units, and I think along with that higher amount of margin, if it is supported in this particular quarter and thereafter, I believe that I think Bajaj Auto would be remaining relatively more favorite in the marketplace. It has underperformed all these times, and I think now probably the stock would perform better going forward.
Right, so that explains the view on the auto stocks. Devin, we'll just come back to you in a bit because one of the stocks which is outperforming right now is Laurus Labs. It's increased its stake in a stem cell and gene therapy company called ImmunoAct. Ekta joins in to tell us more about this deal and the impact that it can have on the entire space itself. And then we'll come back to Devin. Ekta, first to you.
Thanks for that. Well, yes, it is interesting news, you'd have to say, for Laurus Labs because they have increased stake in the cell and gene therapy company ImmunoAct. So now the company is going to be acquiring an additional 7.24% stake for around 80 odd crores. Laurus Labs' earlier investment was in November 2021. The company is now going to hold over 33 odd % stake in this particular entity. Now, what does the company do? It was founded in 2018. It does have drugs which are in the pipeline. So it's looking at CAR-T therapy, which is basically a type of therapy for blood cancer. But right now, they just have R&D costs. They do not have any kind of profit or revenues that they're making. The company has said that they expect commercial stage of ImmunoAct to probably happen in FY25. And the valuations have moved up simply because the drug trials have gone from phase 1 to phase 2. So the valuations have risen from over 800 odd crores to over 200 odd crores earlier. Now, the fund infusion will help in terms of fast-tracking additional supply of the lead candidate, further expansion of their GMP facilities. They do have an R&D GMP facility which is coming up in Navi Mumbai. The company says that ImmunoAct, according to them, which is basically what Laurus Labs is saying, is expected to be profitable as an investment going forward. Remember, any R&D company has high gestation and high risk because at the end of the day, you don't know if the drug is going to be successful. And there's a lot of weight involved. There's a lot of money involved as well. But Laurus Labs, it seems, is betting on this.
Ekta, thank you very much for that. In fact, earlier today, we had a chat with Satyanarayan Chava, the founder and CEO of Laurus Laboratories, about this investment that the company has made. Listen into what he had to say.
As of now, ImmunoAct doesn't have any debt on their books. They're also planning to build their own facility right now in Mumbai itself, and also looking at expanding in other cities once the approval from DCGI comes. So, commercial sale will happen in FY25. We don't expect in FY24. So it is too early to predict the revenues for next year because we are in the process of finalizing the cost of therapy and how many therapies we will make, what could be the potential for treatments and all. It is under commercial planning right now. Company was doing phase 1 and we did value that company at the time is 120 crore pre-money at the time. Right now company is on the midst of phase 2.
Okay, one more, that's Laurus, but one more sort of healthcare company, a pharma company, which we want to focus on is Apollo Hospitals. There are, I think, some brokers sounding positive numbers yesterday. Management was on yesterday. Ekta, tell us more.
Well, yes, the brokers seem to be quite positive. Apollo Hospitals came out with its numbers some time ago during the week. They had their conference call, which was on Thursday during market hours, and now the brokers had written on it overnight, and that's what it's reacting to. So they seem positive. Jefferies, Kotak, Motilal Oswal all have retained their buy call. Jefferies has a buy rating, target price 5,300. According to them, management expects the occupancy to hit 70% by Q4. In Healthco, the company guided for a break even by Q4. Kotak retains their buy. Target prices marginally raised. Subdued Q4 due to lower footfalls and higher 24/7 losses. They forecast overall sales and EBITDA CAGR of 18% and 24% respectively over FY23 and 26. Motilal in-line revenue according to them. Higher OPEX has hurt margins. They have a buy with a target price of 5,450. overall they remain positive because it's consistent efforts to improve growth in profitability and in the healthcare services vertical, cost management measures to reduce the losses in the healthcare vertical, and a robust expansion in the pharmacy network across India. So it seems as though the brokers are going ahead with their bullish call on Apollo.
All right, bullish call on Apollo coming in. That's on all the healthcare and pharmaceutical related stocks. Devin, anything that you like here? I mean, would you back the big one, Apollo Hospitals, in the hospital space, or would you look at a couple of these mid-tier names as well? We did have the managements of Shalby join us a couple of days ago. There was Medanta. There are developments in Rainbow as well. So would you look at any of these hospitals or back Apollo for their digital foray and the fundraising plans that the management has guided up for?
So overall, I think the hospital segments, most of the stocks are adequately priced, digitally priced, even though the underlying story remains confirmed. But still, I think likes of Apollo 2, I think at the current valuation, definitely I think there is no margin of safety available for investors if one is buying today. Even though I think entire story remains absolutely intact. So I would rather be happy to buy into the companies where probably I think the downside risk is protected. And earlier in the day, I think the Laurus was being talked about. We find that this particular story looks reasonably good now. It's shaping up well. Of course, I think the investment in this particular company, which is a therapy company, where I think the outcome would be coming in after 2 years, I think that is not something which immediately give valuation to. But we believe that I think largely the API segment of the company is now basically finding relatively better stability compared to previous 2 years, where they were affected largely because of the cost and at the same time, I think they affected on the business side. Now at least things are looking much better. So we would prefer to go with the likes of Laurus, likes of Divi's, where the valuations have corrected and I think the downside risk is now relatively less comparatively with the higher visibility of growth at this point of time.
All right, thanks a lot for joining in, Devin. We request you to hold on. We just take a short break, come back, focus on the markets, have a few more questions with Devin, and also get our alpha manager for the day, Aditya Sood of Incred PMS, on the other side joins in. Stay tuned.
My journey of insurance and investments began at the same time when I invested in LIC SEEP. In this fast-moving world, SEEP can balance your funds with security and growth. SEEP will take care of the ups and downs of the market and will give you fruitful results so that you enjoy the ride. And when SEEP is with you, you can soar high.
LIC's unit-linked insurance plan SEEP offers savings and protection so that you can soar high in your life. LIC, हर पल आपके साथ.
Slow. I'm a tortoise. But your wealth managers, they shouldn't be as slow, you know?
Choose Nuvama. We move at the right pace because we only do what's right for you and your money. Nuvama. Let's do it right.
We don't just design new cars. We create new ways to design all cars. In fact, we make the whole world of India's mobility new forever.
ट्रेडिंग shouldn't feel like this, इसलिए हमने बनाया ICICI Direct Flash Trade, जो देता है clutter-free experience Quick entry or exits, live tracking के साथ सिर्फ ₹7 per order. Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.
Welcome back. Well, let's focus on one specific stock and story. This is about Bank of Maharashtra. Sources are telling us that Bank of Maharashtra could be launching a QIP soon. Let's go across to Abhishek, who has more details on this. Abhishek, what are you picking up?
Well, Subi, sources tell CNBC-TV18 that Bank of Maharashtra could launch a QIP very soon. So, Bank of Maharashtra could have a base issue size of about 500 crore, which, depending upon the demand, could be scaled up to as high as 1,000 crore. So, bank may offer some discount to its investors by about 5%. Now, based on the calculation of taking 1,000 crore into account and the CMP giving a 5% discount, the calculation shows that net worth could increase by 6.5% to about 16,600 crores. The equity dilution could be around 5%. The book value that can increase by 1% to about 23.5 rupees per share. The Tier 1 ratio that will increase almost by 90 basis points to about 15.1%. And Government of India's stake in the bank could decline from 91% that it has as of now to about 86.5%. We had written to the management of Bank of Maharashtra and we are still awaiting for a response from them. Back to you.
Okay, got that. Thanks, Abhishek, for the details there. So, the QIP, perhaps getting the market a little interested. Devin, I'm not sure if Bank of Maharashtra is under your coverage or not, but, we were just chatting about this earlier as well. There's a lot of buying in Tier 2 financials today, RBL Bank, South Indian Bank, Manappuram, lots and lots of stocks which are flying around, even a PNB Housing for that matter. Any thoughts on either Bank of Maharashtra or perhaps any other specific names that you like when you go to Tier 2, Tier 3 financials?
So, Surabhi, I think what my observation is that I think whenever the market touches all-time high or if it is in the vicinity of all-time high, I think those stocks which have been not performing, they would start, I think, asking for the attention of the traders. I think typically that same situation is happening. Nothing changes fundamentally for most of the PSBs, and I think they remain, so they are in a relatively better situation than what they were before, as far as I think the non-performing asset-related books concerned. But frankly, I think on the business model side, the traction definitely is not seen as great as it is being seen for some of the corporate banks, where we are seeing the corporate loan book growing at 20% in case of retail, in case of corporate, in case of housing finance. As their peers in PSBs, they don't. Of course, I think these PSBs are available cheaper compared to, I think, the corporate side of the banks. But I believe that I think it will be making more sense to buy into some of the larger banks where they have got the better ability to fund the larger projects. And in turn, I think, grow the book size systematically. So we would remain more comfortable with the corporate banks vis-a-vis, I think, the PSB, even though they are available comparatively at lower valuation.
Devin, we've spoken about capital goods in the past, but names like ABB, now ABB just yesterday had hit its all-time high levels, but in a span of yesterday and with today's correction, the stock has fallen close to about 8% from peak levels. Is this a good enough entry point or would you wait for lower levels?
Honestly, I think I don't see these companies going too much low on their stock prices because they are right now in a very strong business cycle. And as we see the visibility of growth in their business, I think there remains, I think, upwards of 20% on a year-over-year basis, at least for the next couple of years for sure, given the kind of order book and the kind of execution that they are doing. So in my viewpoint, I think the larger fall will probably not happen in this kind of stocks. Also because of the fact that the floating stock in the market is practically very less because of, I think, the larger holding held by the parent. So from that perspective too, I don't think that too sharp a fall can be expected. And they continue to remain traded at a premium valuation. So a small correction of 10 degrees or 10 to 15% rather, if at all that happens, I think that would be a time to buy into some of these companies like ABB, Siemens.
Well, there's serious momentum in the broader end of the markets right now. All the cash stocks, they're surging in how. We have Nureka, of course. It's seen a big decline, but now it's locked in upper circuit, a 20% up move with huge volumes. SJS Enterprise is up around 13%. Pick a stock and it's in double digits. EPL, SL Propack, that is the erstwhile SL Propack, up about 10%. Himmat Singh Said, in fact, in just the last 2 or 3 days, the stock is up around 20-odd%. Today, it's up in 10%. And we have a bunch of these real estate stocks doing well. Arvind Smart Spaces, up around 8%. Sobha is one which is up around 7-odd%. And we're seeing a decent move come by on Purvankara as well. That's up around 5% with decent volumes. When you were speaking about housing finance, how about these housing companies itself, the real estate pack? Do you like any of them?
Well, as Mangalam, I would always say that I think they're good companies executing very well these projects. I think not only in the metros, but also in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, they have got a larger amount of projects, largely in the area of affordable housing as well. So some of the local housing companies, the construction companies, are having reasonably good amount of visibility as far as I think the outlook is concerned on the business side. Though there may be a situation that in a couple of quarters, I think you might see the revenue and the profits do not match because of the typical nature of the business. But I believe that I think they are having reasonably good situation, including in the affordable housing, including in the premium housing as well in metros. But in order to have more consistency in the portfolio, my preference has always remained, as you alluded, saying, I think is always on the housing finance side, because we believe that it is a time when the real estate space is likely to compound at a steady pace, and housing finance could be, I think, a steady performer with around 20% kind of a CAGR growth. So that is where probably we feel more comfortable staying with housing finance company. And of course, I think when a market gives deep correction, at that point of time, once again, one could buy into some of the real estate developers company. So that is where I think we would like to keep an eye on.
Okay, well, Devin, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much for joining us, and great speaking with you, as always, here on CNBC-TV18. Mangalam, absolutely right with just the sheer scale of the move day after day in small caps largely. By the way, I think Mangalam did mention Cyient. If you look at the index weighted, in terms of contribution on the small cap index, Cyient is the largest sort of contributor. Yesterday and actually over a period of time as well. Cyient has done very, very well, not just for itself, but because of its weight in that index, small cap index, it's pulled things up. All Cargo is another one. A few other names: Shankara Buildcon, NRB Bearings, Nucleus has gone berserk last few days. Westlife. That's McDonald's in the west and the south. That is doing very, very well. And of course, some of the textile companies. I think Mangala mentioned Himmat Singh, but Indocount is another one which is surging. Aditya Sood is with us, portfolio manager at Incred PMS. Aditya, good to have you with us here. Thank you for your time. A bulk of your portfolio is in that space, mid caps, small caps. Aditya, just the sheer, does it surprise you, the way things are moving, the pace at which they're moving, and very, very varied?
Not really. I think so. I think so. We have taken a overweight stance on small caps for last 3-4 months odd. I think so. What has happened is that, if you sit back and look through last 2 years, what has happened is that, obviously, it has been difficult to beat fixed deposit returns, as an equity investor. But what we have also seen is that, there are close to 2,000 odd companies wherein we have seen a very decent correction, 30 to 50%. There are some pockets wherein, stocks have corrected by more than 50%. And the call is on cyclicality here. Essentially, our belief is that, most of the categories in India go through their own cycle, and especially true of small caps. Another important call is going to be what is going to move the market going into election year, or possibly, on a 12 to 18 month basis. Our view is that, as FII flows return to the market, and we are at a very nascent stage of FII flows returning to the market. It has only been close to 20 odd days wherein we have seen buying numbers. Obviously, there is an element of, a normalization of EBITDA margins for a lot of the companies. There is a combination of freight cost. Obviously, it has peaked out. There is a combination of power and fuel cost moderation. There is also a combination of raw material cost, normalizing. So that is where we find, maximum opportunity at this juncture. So result season has been, fairly heartening for a lot of small cap companies, although there continues to be divergence, within small caps.
Aditya, I just want to ask you if you've looked at two IT companies, and these are, the small to mid cap. One of them is Nucleus Software. On Friday, 20% higher, Monday, 20% higher, then another 10% higher. Today as well, it's up 10%. In a span of 5 days, the stock is up more than 50%. So that's one. Is this a company that you've looked at any point of time? And the other one is Cyient. A 70% rally in this year. And this comes at a time when the Nifty IT index and many of the constituents have done absolutely nothing. So, your thoughts on these two stocks if you have looked at them. If not, I'll go ahead and talk about, some other additions and deletions that you've done in your fund.
So no, Nucleus, I think so. It is a product company. So, obviously product companies have got a lot of operating leverage. We do have exposure in intellect design arena, which obviously is a BFSI stroke product company. As far as Cyient is concerned, it is a very straightforward case of the stock used to always trade at a discount to the sector. Obviously, there is a DLM business that they are they have. It is a late cycle manufacturing play, and then obviously they filed for an IPO. On the EMS side. So our view is that, Cyient obviously has been a, re-rating sort of a story wherein, the street has seen some sort of re-rating, but it is closely linked to, the way Syrma, Keynes, a lot of these EMS companies have done recently. So possibly, there is some value picking as far as Cyient is concerned.
All right, so that's about Cyient as well as Nucleus. Aditya, moving on to or taking off from what Rima spoke about additions and deletions in your portfolio, the one that really stood out was Stovecraft. You've bought more of Stovecraft. Just wanted to understand why is it that you've done so? Because, the company has been disappointing on growth for the last many quarters. Yesterday we had the management as well indicating that this time around they did not grow as much as they anticipated, though they're always optimistic. But the results fail to satisfy the street. That's on one. And the other one, you believe that it's the right time to, maybe accumulate something like Jubilant FoodWorks. So trying to understand that as well, because QSR, everyone's talking about a bit of slowdown after the post-COVID, growth that we saw in that segment. And in that, Jubilant FoodWorks has actually been a bit of an underperformer. So why Stovecraft and Jubilant FoodWorks?
Yeah, so essentially, our framework says that, there are in secular categories, you get, times wherein, companies can see a cyclical decline. And this is at least understood by a lot many people. So if you look at, for example, Jubilant FoodWorks in particular, what you'll find is that, this is not the first time wherein SSG growth has been negative. What our framework says is that, whenever SSG growth is negative, that is the right time to look at, QSR stocks. Again, obviously, there is a bit of divergence wherein, obviously, Westlife has outperformed in the near term. But what we find is that, SSG growth, negative SSG growth, the key question is that, how much the stock is pricing in. So once you see a, 30, 40, 50% correction in a lot of these great businesses, our view is that, you have to look at the sensitivity of margins to what the stock is really pricing in. And that is where I think so, Jubilant particularly scores, obviously barbecue also is a very unique play where Jubilant is itself invested in that company. So our view is that, there is going to be a trend line growth. Negative SSG is not here to stay. Another thing is that, obviously there is a World Cup which is coming up. What we have seen is that, pizza consumption shoots up. As and when that happens, because it is a heavily consumed category ahead of the World Cup. So our view is that, there is going to be an element of mean reversion as far as SSG is concerned. Now, if you look at, Stovecraft specifically, what you will find is that, there is the stock got IPO'd at 450 rupees, was as high as 1100 odd rupees. Our expectation there is that, it is a combination of 7% margin, mean reverting to 10-11% sort of a number. Obviously, they have reported a much higher EBITDA margin in the past. I think so. We like winners in a cycle wherein, they continue to gain market share. There was some element of, volume growth. And obviously, as a raw material headwind subsides, what you'll expect from these companies is that, the margins are going to mean revert very, very fast. So our view is that, one needs to buy at a decline to see returns which are meaningful over the medium term.
Okay, by the way, just want to point out this news that's coming in on SpiceJet that the court has now ordered them to go ahead and make a payment. I think it's 200, if I remember, 270 odd crores. No, actually it's 380 crores. That is the total payout. The stock on the BSE feeds is up about 3%. We'll just refresh and check the NSE rates as well. But on BSE, the stock is holding on to a gain of almost 3%. And SpiceJet is saying that they are in discussions with Mr. Kalanthimaran and the associate entities to look at an amicable settlement of all dues. So that's just some news coming in on SpiceJet on the sidelines. Aditya, hi, Surabhi here. I just want to go back to that point that you were making on EMS when we were discussing Cyient. What is your call on the EMS space? Because it's getting a very, very interesting sort of playing field out there. There used to be the traditional names like Amber and Dixon, but then you've got these new entrants like Keynes and Sirma. And a lot of these companies have shown, they're small companies, but they've shown very decent growth numbers in the fourth quarter. Do you like anything here, and how are you dividing it between, let's say, the more of the consumer plays, which is television screens and mobile phones, and some of these industrial electronic equipment manufacturing themes?
The one filter that we start to use obviously is valuation, and it has been very difficult to place ourselves in this category, wherein, again, it is an example of growth visibility, and a lot of people have started to believe that this is a story wherein it is going to play out over the next decade. Although that is true, but one has to also look at diversification within the client base. So what we don't like about a lot of these companies is that, they are heavily dependent on a particular client or a particular category. Secondly, I think so while valuations have been generally prohibitive, although we are a big believer in making India a story, but what we have chosen is to play it through a unique company known as Tejas Networks, wherein we believe it is a combination of very high technological prowess, basically very high patents. So there has to be an entry barrier in the business. So what we don't like about the EMS business is that, it really doesn't have an entry barrier. And obviously, the margins reflect that to a certain extent. Obviously, a lot is going to be, mean reversion in terms of, again, the same factors playing through, which is normalization of raw material costs, so on and so forth. But it is going to be very, very difficult for a lot of these EMS companies to sustain margins. So I think so quarterly trends are very difficult to read through in this category. I think so we would go by the yearly trends in terms of, margins, because, in a particular quarter, something or the other keeps on happening, and whether they are in a position to, sort of retain that benefit of either freight or raw material needs to be understood well.
Aditya, I believe you've been bringing down your exposure to the financial space. At one point of time, you were overweight, or at least, in line, and now you're underweight financials. Your peak weightage of the financial sector in your book used to be 34%. It's down to 23.5%. Can you take us through that call, and where exactly are you, doing some profit booking?
So two things here. One is that financials have become a disproportionate weight in the index. Obviously, as a percentage of overall Nifty profits, it is close to 37 odd percent. So purely from a cyclical perspective. Secondly, our belief is that, the best of credit cost is behind us. Thirdly, the retail lending side of it, clearly the trends which are emerging, and we are at a very early stage of those trends, in the sense that if you look at, SBI cards, for example, the gross slippages number, or even if you look at, Bajaj Finance, what you'll find is that, the GNPA has been rising on the urban and rural B2C business. So what you'll essentially find is that, we would take a cyclical call, a gradual overweight becoming an underweight. Some small finance banks have, done reasonably well. For example, We continue to be, invested into Equitas Small Finance Bank and CSB, but a bit of profit taking is also required, because what we have seen is that, these stocks have gone up by 70 to 100% over a 1 year rolling basis. So I think so it is a gradual tactical call wherein we are moving away from financials to segments that we really like and which were getting underrepresented in our portfolios. Consumer durable obviously is one space, second being consumer discretionary consumption. So we believe that, we have to move from, take some profits periodically just to do some readjustment in the portfolio.
Okay, got that. Thanks very much, Aditya. Appreciate you joining in, and pleasure speaking with you as always. That's a very nice chat as always. We'll take a quick commercial break here. Markets are down 35 points, and we're at 18,500. With just 19 minutes to go for close. We'll take a break. We'll get you short-term trading ideas with our technical experts on the other side. More coming up in terms of opinion as well. Stay with us.
दुनिया में कुछ लोग कहते हैं और कुछ लोग करते हैं। जब कहा गया देश में सोलर पावर सफल नहीं हो सकता, तो हमने सुना नहीं, उसे सफल कर दिखाया। कहा देश का सबसे बड़ा पावर प्लांट बनाना इम्पॉसिबल, तो हमने पॉसिबल कर दिया। बोला कोने कोने तक बिजली पहुंचाना किसी के बस की बात नहीं, हमने पहुंचा दी। सवाल उठे एनवायरमेंट फ्रेंडली गैस सब तक कैसे पहुंचेगी? हमने वो भी पहुंचा दी। कहा तो ये भी गया पैकेज फूड बिजनेस हमसे नहीं हो पाएगा, लेकिन हमने कर दिखाया। बातें उठी सीमेंट सेक्टर में हम कभी स्ट्रांग नहीं बन सकते, तो हमने सुना नहीं, बन के दिखाया। चर्चा हुई देश में इतना बड़ा पोर्ट बनाना असंभव, हमने संभव कर दिखाया। और जब कहा गया देश के एयरपोर्ट्स इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड्स के नहीं हो सकते, तब भी हमने सुना नहीं, कर दिए। मुश्किलों की नहीं सुनते, हम करके दिखाते हैं। अदानी, हम करके दिखाते हैं।
You know, I was a bright student. I wanted to do something, to be someone.
Why not start something of your own? Start a business. That would require a big investment. Zero investment. Zero investment? Yes, I am doing it. I am Principal Madam. She's my client. I am an LIC agent. Now think big. Become an LIC agent. Visit our website or contact your nearest LIC branch.
Well, we're 15 minutes past 3, and the 3 p.m. move has happened on the downside. That we're comfortably below that 44,000 mark, 43,800 on the Nifty Bank as well. In fact, the Nifty Bank has taken a much harder knock, and that is all courtesy ICICI Bank. ICICI Bank has actually fallen about 2% from the highs. We have witnessed a fair amount of weakness in Kotak Mahindra Bank as well. Unwinding of the purchase that we saw ahead of the MSCI inflows yesterday, so that stock down almost 4%. And a couple of nifty heavyweights also not helping the cause of the frontline index. The Nifty 2 now comfortably below that 18,500 mark. In fact, below yesterday's low or around yesterday's low of 18,483 itself. So you have Reliance, which is lower. You have ITC, which is dragging the index lower. And alongside that, it is the Nifty Bank that we're talking about. The mid-cap index too has moved off highs. So mildly in the green right now, but sitting with gains of just about 0.2%. Mitesh Thakkar joins in now to tell us what to buy or sell today for a reverse trade tomorrow. Mitesh, the 3 p.m. move has happened on the downside. The street was positioning for some support at the 18,500 mark on the Nifty. Looks like those guys would have to unwind their positions now.
So I think the index, as I said, is contracting, and we were nearly trading at the upper end of the range. Especially, I think, on the Nifty, when we were today morning, you were closer to about 18,600, 18,650 being the upper end of the range. So I think there's a good chance that we'll head towards 18,450. I think we're doing that. In case we break below that, then I look for further declines. And the Bank Nifty has broken that pivot of 43,850. So 43,500 is the next support area. Having said that, I have one buy and one sell. I have just a minute. Yeah, a buy on Sun TV or a BTST on Sun TV with a stop at about 449, and look for a target of around 459 to about 460 over here. And Tata Consumer is on the STBD side, which I would recommend a pullback to about levels of 785. So short this with a stop at 798.
Okay, got that, Mitesh. Thanks for the calls. By the way, this is quite an interesting move, considering global markets have held up very well. This weakness is a little more peculiar because it seems to be limited to us. Most of the neighborhood markets ended up well, and this kind of a decline on the Nifty perhaps is something that would have taken the bulls by a bit of surprise, because most of the European markets are up anywhere between 1% to 2%. Let's take a break on that note. We'll come back in just a bit and get you some more market commentary and advice. As we take the break, let's leave you with some opinion that we got from Arvind Sanger earlier in the day.
I think the market has already discounted the debt deal. That was discounted, I think, when it became clear that the two sides had reached a deal, close to reaching a deal a week ago. So I don't think that is going to have much of an effect on the market. I think this is a very weak rally, because a narrow rally like this is not a sign of a healthy market. And these things do not end well. I think we could get a rate cut later in this year, but that's because I'm expecting a recession. Without a recession, rate cut doesn't happen. The earnings season has been pretty decent. I think the outlook for fiscal 24 is strong. If I take up, slightly more long-term 6-month view, fiscal first quarter, second quarter earnings, I think we should continue to see strong trends.
डायबिटीज है। जब लाइफ में डायबिटीज का डर आता है तो इंसान हर एक कदम सोच समझ के उठाता है। सुबह अलार्म को जगाता है, जितने हैं आसन सब आजमाता है। आपको बुरा ना लगे इसीलिए पूरा परिवार आपका डाइट प्लान अपनाता है। ना नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं। अपने फेवरेट मीठे को मना करना नो थैंक्स अचीवमेंट बन जाता है। डायबिटीज कंट्रोल करने के लिए आपने इतने स्टेप्स उठाए, तो हमने भी आपके लिए एक कदम बढ़ाया। बजाज अलियांज लाइफ इंश्योरेंस प्रेजेंट्स इंडियाज ओनली टर्म प्लान एक्सक्लूसिवली डिजाइन फॉर डायबिटिक्स। ये प्लान आपके फैमिली लाइफ गोल्स को सुरक्षित रखता है, साथ ही हेल्दी लाइफस्टाइल अपनाने पर रिन्यूअल प्रीमियम पर रिडक्शन भी देता है। समझो हो गया।
ट्रेडिंग shouldn't feel like this. इसलिए हमने बनाया ICICI Direct Flash Trade, जो देता है clutter free experience, quick entry और exits, live tracking के साथ सिर्फ ₹7 per order. Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.
एक है जमीन मेरी, एक है मौका मेरा, इसमें सब लगाऊंगा, अपने इरादों से मजबूत एक घर बनाऊंगा।
हाँ शुक्ला जी, भिजवाना सिर्फ अल्ट्राटेक ही।
अल्ट्राटेक ही क्यों?
आप ही ने तो कहा था कि घर जिंदगी में सिर्फ एक ही बार बनता है।
घर एक, मौका एक, इसलिए सीमेंट भी देश का नंबर 1। अल्ट्राटेक, इंडियाज नंबर 1 सीमेंट।
नई कार। तुमने कार इंश्योरेंस खरीदा होगा एगो ऐप से, नहीं?
आपको
नहीं तो कोई बात नहीं मूर्ति, गलतियां होती रहती हैं, कोई जरूरत नहीं है चेक करने।
नई कार खरीदने से पहले एको चेक करें और 36,000 तक बचाएं।
Down 400 points for the Nifty, bang from the highs a lot more. The Nifty also down 66 points. The sensex down about 100 odd points. Looks like it is weakness on account of weekly options expiry, because there is no let up in the gains that we saw in the cash market end of things. In fact, some stocks are only being added to that list, or they are extending their gains. Arvind Smart Spaces, a few minutes ago it was just about 7-8% higher. Now that gain has extended itself to about 11 odd percent. Vectors, now this stock has continuously hit upper levels in the last few trading sessions. In fact, this month, the last 1 month, it's up 30%. In the year 2023, it's up around 87%. So things looking up for Vector Foods as well. And Ethos too has begun to gain some from the lows of today's trading session. In fact, it's picked up and currently trading around the highs of the session. Amrish Balika now joins us. Good afternoon, Amrish. Do you like something like a Vectors, which is up, what, almost 175% in the last 12 months?
Good afternoon. In fact, Vectors has done well, no doubt, and because of which we have seen the price really move up like this. Because if you look at the last 2 years post the IPO, it had underperformed. But the way it has moved up now, I think it's more than fully priced. So I will not surely recommend at this level. I think if one has and had bought in the IPO earlier, I think it's a good time to start booking profits.
Okay, booking profits is the advice. The decline on the Nifty is quite telling now, 60 points lower. And along with, of course, a lot of the financial names that are weak, you have other biggies like ITC, Britannia from the consumer space. Maruti is reacting weak despite what was a pretty good May for the company. Amrish, hi. Let's straight away get to your pick. And I think it's the stock that, Abhishek was telling us about earlier, which is Bank of Maharashtra.
Absolutely. I mean, after a long time, I'm recommending a stock which is into 2 digits. So this is one of the oldest banks in Maharashtra, having more than about 2,200 branches across 29 states and 5 union territories, but actually concentrated in Maharashtra and Gujarat. After a capital infusion of about 4,500 crores by government in 2018, till then the performance was absolutely pathetic. But then post that, the balance sheet has been cleaned up, and the last 3 years saw an excellent improvement in performance. I mean, if you look at FY23, advances grew about 30% Y-on-Y, deposits were up about 16%, and the management expects about 22% growth in credit going ahead, at least for the next 2 years. And if you look at their loan book, retail, agri, SME is about 60%, corporates is about 40%. And it has come out of the prompt corrective action as the asset quality has improved quite sharply. Gross NPAs is down at 2.47%, and this was 19.48% in FY18. So I'm expecting a very sharp improvement. Net NPA is just about 0.25%. And if you look at the provision coverage ratio, that's about 98.28% as of Q4. And the earnings were, quite good, with the CASA ratio at about 53%. NIMs were at about 3.54%, and it's got one of the most efficient cost-to-income ratio among the PSU banks, which is at 39%. And the management is focusing on robotic process automation, which will further improve the cost-income ratio. So expecting an EPS of about 5.5 in FY25 and an adjusted book value of about 32. So I have a long-term target of about 42 for this stock.
Okay. We were just joking, Amrish, about Bank of Maharashtra. But you're absolutely right. I mean, in our own ignorance, we were talking about where are the branches, right? Bank of Maharashtra branches. We're not able to spot any but our own ignorance. And stocks, it's interesting, the pick and, the rationale behind it. They've completely overhauled things, and asset quality, etc., looking shining Bank of Maharashtra is, what, 31, 35, and Amrish saying it should get to about 42 kind of levels. Amrish, just a quick word on, I don't know, it's just the move. I don't know if earnings are catching up. I mean, Mangalam just asked you about Bector, for example. You said it's fully priced in. Look at Westlife. Look at so many stocks which are racing ahead. This is all earnings revisions, earnings looking up massively? Or do you think this is a bit of momentum which is playing its part as well?
No, I would say possibly both, because if you look at the Q4 earnings, by and large, most of the earnings were better than expected, because just before the earnings, most of the analysts had reduced their expectations. So naturally, when the performance is better than expected, you have that move in the stock. And once the stock moves, the momentum is there, and because of which you have a lot of traders also getting in. But then we should also see that these are the same stocks which have not performed in the last 12 to 18 months. So because of which that major interest is there in the stocks which have performed well. But I would say, at this point of time, one should be a bit careful, because we have seen an extremely good move. And if you're looking at short-term profits, I don't think there is too much of an upside immediately. I think we should see more of a sideways, time-wise correction for the markets overall over the next 2 or 3 months. But if you're talking of longer term, clearly I'm bullish. But then if one is looking at short-term sort of profits, I think one should be a bit careful and take the profits out.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much, Amrish. We'll leave it there. Appreciate you joining in, and it's always a good conversation with you. Amrish's pick today, Bank of Maharashtra. The Nifty will end 50 points lower. So in many ways, this is a repeat of what we saw yesterday. The Nifty and the bank's index were lower, but broader markets were higher. So the small cap index is ending with another 1% gains. Basically, we started the show at 230 with the small cap index up 1. It ends up there, notwithstanding the shakeout that we saw on the Nifty and the bank Nifty. And I think the mid cap index also up, but not quite as much as what the small cap index did. Mid caps, barely up actually. So that's the picture on your screens. On the Nifty, though, the pressure really today coming from names like Bharti, Coal India, and Kotak Bank. Actually, Kotak single-handedly responsible for about 25 index points out of the 50 that Nifty lost by close. Rima.
It's still a disappointing session, right? Because the macro picture, the macro news flow when we began trade was so positive. On one hand, you had stronger than expected GDP data. On the other hand, you also had crude prices down, which means the inflation print going ahead is also positive. Europe, through midway of India, our trading session was holding up quite smartly with gains of 1%. But yet, we are seeing the Nifty and the sensex close in the red. Prashant spoke about the top 3 Nifty losers: Coal India, Kotak Mahindra Bank, Bharti Airtel. Other than that, ICICI Bank, HDFC Bank, they were weak even in yesterday's trading session, and they followed it up with another cut. HDFC Life saw buying interest yesterday on account of MSCI. That's reversed a bit. ITC continues to correct after hitting lifetime high levels earlier this week. So those were some stocks under pressure. On the gaining side, autos were in top gear. Tata Motors, Bajaj Auto, Hero MotoCorp higher in trade. Apollo Hospitals gaining for the second day in a row. Asian Paints rallied with the decline in crude prices. In IT names, you had TCS. K. Krithivasan is now the new CEO and MD. He takes charge today, and TCS has given a salute to his incoming, and the stock is up close to about 1%. So the mid-cap index closing in the green, but off from the session highs.
That's right. At the index level, the enthusiasm and euphoria kind of calmed down, even on the mid-cap side of the market. But the advance decline ratio is still very, very strong. You're talking about over 1,700 advancing stocks, just about 1,170 declining stocks, which is why there will be plenty of gainers as we are closing out the day. So there's South Indian Bank, 9.5% higher. Redington had a great session, 6% up. There's UCO Bank, RBL Bank. We've been talking about this big move in Tier 2 financials that really played out today. Bank of Maharashtra, Punjab and Sindh Bank, quite a few names on the upside. Graphite was up about 6% as well. So interesting movers. Throw in Ascient, 5.5% in that list. Deepak Fertilizers, Sobha was up about 7%. So it's quite evident that even at the index level, the market might be dithering here and there. But it seems that there's a lot of accumulation on individual stocks for what it's worth. But at the headline index level, Prashant, surely it is a close below the 18,500 mark. Can't take away from that.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, that level which the market must trade above for, you know, doubts not to creep in is 18,420. And I think we've been highlighting that for the last couple of days. We closed at 18,485 in terms of the final sort of bell. And I think the banks pretty close to, I would imagine, the 20-day moving average. I had to quickly check, but you know, down 0.75%, 400 points lower. We should be close to the 20-day on the Nifty Bank as well. Well, that's it from all of us here on this edition of Closing Bell. Slip into a quick break. On the other side, my colleague Lata will get chatting with a whole host of experts to discuss SEBI's latest consultation paper. The regulator has proposed stricter disclosure norms for foreign portfolio investors. Stay tuned, that conversation coming up.